Hello, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Brotherly Love in the District. Tristan here, along with Jacob. Jacob, you want to go ahead and tell them what we're going to get into today?
Yeah, so going into football, we have a lot to talk about. There was two big trades for the Eagles, and this week we're going to be talking about the Commanders. There's a few things we're going to be talking about. Brian Robinson, we're going to be talking about the 53-man roster and continuing our analysis of the team. Going into hockey, I don't think we're really going to be talking that much about it, considering that it's the down point in the season where it's just before training camp and the preseason starts. So we're not going to talk too much about that. But going into baseball, we're just going to go over how the playoff race is going and how each of our teams are doing. So let's get right into it.
So we will start off, we'll start off with the two trades, those being the biggest things in the last week. Phillies trade for CJ Gardner-Johnson and trade away Jalen Reagor. And I think CJ Gardner-Johnson is definitely the one that I'm more excited about.
That when I saw that, I was mad because I'm kind of worried about that because he's a very good player. You got him for a pretty good price.
Yeah, they didn't get him for much, and the reason being is because he was going into free agency next season and he wasn't going to re-sign. The Saints wanted to use him more as a slot corner, and he wants to play safety. He played safety in college. I believe he went to the University of Florida. So he played safety in college, and he wants to play safety. And the Saints wanted to use him as a slot corner more. So he wasn't going to re-sign next season so once they knew that, they were trying to get rid of him so that, they'd get something out of him instead of him just walking for free. So the Eagles got CJ Gardner-Johnson and a 7th round pick in 2025 and they sent a 2023 5th round pick and the worst of their 2 6th rounders in 2024 for CJ Gardner-Johnson. So a 5th and a 6th rounder for CJ Gardner-Johnson and a 7th rounder, I think that's pretty good. I mean,
that's very good considering I think your safeties weren't as strong.
The safeties were, you had Marcus Epps, and then after that, you really didn't have much. Anthony Harris didn't show much he's a veteran, but he didn't show much in training camp of being a starter. Jaquiski Tartt got cut, and did you see him tweet out after he got cut?
No.
He tweeted out like, "Oh, praise the Lord," after he got cut from the team because he didn't want to be in Philly.
Wow. Tell us how you really feel.
Yeah, he was happy to be out of there. So definitely do not see him coming back on the practice squad or anything. And then they had Kavon Wallace, who I was kind of surprised made the team. We'll talk about the surprises for the 53 next week for the Eagles. We'll talk about the Washington 53 today. But Kavon Wallace at safety, and I think that's really it. The only thing that scares me is the fact that CJ Gardner-Johnson isn't a box safety. He can blitz a little off the edge, but really Marcus Epps and CGJ, I need to abbreviate his name more. Otherwise, I'm going to spend half this episode just trying to pronounce his name.
Yeah.
CGJ, they're both free roaming safeties who kind of are more ball hawks than they are box safeties and, big hitters. So
but I think that's what you need more than you like. I think you need more ball hawks than you do in the box guys because your linebackers, they're nothing special, but they'll be serviceable.
Actually, I will give you this. The box, the 7 in the box, the Eagles front 7 look a hell of a lot better than they have in the previous years. I mean, probably since 2017, and 2017, the linebackers still didn't even look that great. And the depth on the D line was nowhere near as good as the depth on the D line now. So, Nakobe Dean at linebacker that we got in the 3rd round when he was projected to be a 1st rounder. I mean, that's huge. Kaiser White has shown out great, even though he came over from the Chargers and the Chargers were like, we don't really want him. but that was more of a preference because the Chargers defensive coordinator has said that he likes linebackers with size. Kaiser White is not a linebacker with size. And then TJ Edwards as our downhill linebacker. I mean, the front seven looks way better than it has in years. So I see where they're kind of going to the fact that they don't really need to worry about having a safety in the box. But personally, I mean, as just a football fan, I like that classic, one roaming safety and then one big hitting box safety. And I've always liked Brian Dawkins, Cam Chancellor, Sean Taylor, those big safeties who go in and just destroy people in the backfield. That's just the way I like to watch football, but obviously I'm not an NFL coach.
It's nice, but looking at your cornerbacks after Darius Slay, I think like you need more help in terms of your coverage versus your run defense and initial rush.
I like the Eagles. This is the same talk that I was having about, the Giants and the Commanders, which I'll talk about later. Is I like the Eagles starting DBs. After they're starting DBs, I'm not too thrilled.
It's a little
we'll talk about next week. But after Darius Slay and James Bradbury, they're missing a lot at corner. And after those two starting safeties, you really have a lot left to be desired at starting safety. But we'll get to that next week going into that. Then the other trade, a semi big one just because of his name, not because of his play, in Jalen Reagor getting traded to the Vikings, which is kind of ironic because everyone was hating on the Eagles for taking Jalen Reagor, the pick right before Justin Jefferson, and now Justin Jefferson and Jalen Reagor are teammates. So in that trade, the Eagles got, actually give me a sec and I will pull it up. But in that trade, the Eagles didn't get much. They got a 7th rounder in 2023 and a conditional 4th rounder in 2024 that'll drop down to a 5th if he doesn't reach certain statistical marks. Now, the only thing that I have to say about that is there are two big things. Honestly, one, Jalen Reagor didn't make much of a name. You're having a first-round wide receiver be a 5th wide receiver, which honestly, in depth, that sounds great. But at the same time, you shouldn't have your first rounder from 2-3 years ago playing as a 5th receiver and only as a punt returner. So he's shipping him out isn't terrible. I think they can bring in guys. One guy that shined in training camp was Britton Covey, who was great at returning punts and kicks, who didn't make the cut because of the fact that Jalen Reagor was on the team. So now that Jalen Reagor is gone, maybe they're going to bring Britton Covey back. Again, we'll look at that next week going into the Eagles roster. But overall, I'm just happy that they got something for him because he wasn't going to be re-signed next season and he would have walked for free and the Eagles wouldn't have gotten anything out of him. I also think he'll get more playing time in Minnesota. After Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen, they don't really have a great number 3. They have KJ Osborne, who showed hints of being good last season with Adam Thielen out, but I think Jalen Reagor is definitely, it's better to have a first-round pick there than who can show that he can do something, and he's a good gadget player, which the Vikings don't have. So I think he has a better chance to succeed in Minnesota than he did in Philadelphia, being behind A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Quez Watkins, and Zach Pascal. Overall, decent trade. Nothing doesn't really make me mad, but it doesn't make me happy. Either way, I'm just happy they got something back for it. And the other thing for CJ Gardner-Johnson real quick is a plus to trading for him is I think they're going to re-sign him next season, which means they're going to have him locked up. He's only going into his second contract. So they lock him up for a while. That's now 2 good safeties that you're going to have for a while, ball hawking safeties in Marcus Epps and CGJ. And so the Eagles secondary is looking a lot better than it has in the past.
Yeah, I think it's a good addition to your team, and there's nothing really.
How are you? Like, I was talking to one of my buddies who's a Cowboys fan, and he said he actually is a little bit scared now that the Eagles got CJ. How are you feeling about it?
I think
from an opposing team standpoint.
it's definitely worrying because I think you guys have a significantly better shot now. Yeah, I just think if you're looking at it overall, I think in terms of like looking at the team as a whole, you probably have a better team than the Cowboys on paper. But again, I've said this in the past, it still comes down to how Jalen Hurts plays, because
Yeah.
that's, I think, what it banks on this season. But
Which
yeah,
I still don't understand all the hate on him. I think he's getting way underrated, which,
well,
hey, in
I
Philadelphia,
don't think
they
he's
love
bad,
giving
but
him that.
considering what he has around him, he probably should be playing a little better, and we expect him to play better. But
Yeah.
has he played bad? No.
I think, okay, so here's my outlook on Jalen Hurts, which I think I've said every week since last season. But last season, he played decently. He played enough to get him into the playoffs. Like,
Yeah.
I think people keep on forgetting about that. The Eagles made the playoffs. They're a decent team. Like, even when they didn't have a great team around, they still made the playoffs. Granted, it was at the end of the season when they were playing scrubs for the last 7 weeks, the Giants twice, the Commanders twice, like while the Commanders were falling apart, they still made the playoffs. And that's not a terrible. They made the playoffs and they didn't play their starters in the last week. Like that's how comfortable they were with their position. So Jalen Hurts played well enough to get him into the playoffs. They're going to change their offense around entirely this season, which will be interesting to see. But I think Jalen Hurts is definitely getting way underrated right now, and I'm really excited for the season to start to see where he goes. But with that, you want to go over and finish, not finish it up, but go into our third team in the NFC East and talk about the
Yeah.
Commanders?
Yeah, before we talk about that and go into the 53-man roster, I'm pretty sure most people have heard about this, but Brian Robinson, who's been one of the real outstanding players from our preseason, it came out, I don't remember what day, but it came out that he was shot, and
I think it
immediately,
was Monday,
yeah, it was around there, but
Monday or
immediately
Tuesday.
I certainly did, and I think a lot of Washington fans did. We had flashbacks to Sean Taylor because even though it happened in 2007 and I was 5 years old, that's one of my most vivid memories hearing about it. And there's a lot of eerie similarities that really scared a lot of fans. It was a robbery and he was shot in the leg, and I think a lot of fans were worried. But thankfully, he's in stable condition and he's been back to the Washington facility recently, which is a really good thing to hear. He's going to be out for the at least the first 4 games along with Chase Young, but it seems like he got really lucky because it didn't hit any tendons or arteries, and it looks like he could make a recovery this season. So all of us are thankful for that, and I'm definitely wishing him a speedy recovery. So that it was a very low moment that ended up turning into a higher moment, considering that how lucky he ultimately
There was actually some, like you said, he came back to the facility. Did you see why he came back to the facility? Obviously for practice and stuff, but the running backs have their assigned weeks or assigned days that the running backs have to bring in the snacks for the other running backs.
he brought in Oreos.
Yeah, he came back stacked with Oreos on his crutches, which I just thought was pretty cool.
That was a great moment to see.
That's the one thing that I love about sports that you don't really get to see on TV is the banter that the players have. That's one thing I do give props to baseball for, is since obviously you're sitting on base and just waiting for the pitch to go around. You're sitting there talking to the first baseman, or you're chatting. I feel like there's definitely more fun in baseball on the field that you get to see as opposed to any other sport. But I do love how it really is a game and the players take it as such at points. I mean, obviously it's their career and they need to make their money, but I do like that they have their bits of fun in between there that you get to see on social media and stuff.
Yeah, so going into the 53-man roster, there was some real notables. So obviously, Jarrett Patterson was cut, but he signed back to the practice squad team. And I think most of our players, if not all of the ones we released, are signed back on the practice squad, which is good. But One thing that's worrying is we're keeping more tight ends than we are cornerbacks. We have 5 tight ends, but only 4 cornerbacks, which that's a little worrying. I know we claimed 2 off waivers, which is okay, but that's starting to be worrying. We also signed back John Bostic. I believe it was off waivers. But our wide receivers, we have McLaurin, Samuel Doxson, Cam Sims, De'Ami Brown, and Dax Mile. Tight ends, we're keeping 5, which is a little.
I would say, is that due to the your guys' injury history? Curtis Hodges already on IR. Logan Thomas, he's had injury history.
Yeah, we're not sure if he's going to be back week 1. Armani Rogers, who actually I think looks like a steal. The only other team who's keeping 5 tight ends is the Dolphins, so we're not alone in that.
It's definitely a weird. The Eagles only have 3.
Yeah, versus like our linebackers, Holcomb, Davis. We signed David Mayo, brought him back. Milo Effler and Dejon Harris, and we got back John Bostic, like I said. I think we have one of the worst linebacker rooms in the entire league. It's a little worrying.
Well, okay, hold on. Let's go back. Let's start on offense and work our way through.
Yeah.
So obviously, you got Carson Wentz, Taylor Heineke, Sam Howell. I don't think there's any surprise there.
Yeah, that's how the backup should go.
I was gonna say, I think Sam Howell has potential to take over the second string over Taylor Heineke.
Even if
from what I heard in preseason, Sam Howell had a really good preseason.
He had a good game, but I still wouldn't put him in at second string because Heineke, he's played last season with Sam Howell. I think it'd be putting him in too early. And I would still prefer Heineke because he knows the offense a little better. And with Sam Howell, I wouldn't want to throw him in too early and possibly ruin his confidence. I just think it's a bit of a luxury to let a young quarterback be able to develop without any pressure this early in his career. And so, yes, he did have a great game against the Ravens. He should have had more than 1 touchdown, but De'Ami Brown had a few drops. One of them was really baffling and should have been a touchdown. But he's a player who, since last season, has I heard this on the radio and I kind of agree with it. He's kind of like gone backwards in terms of his development. Like, he's dropped a few easy catches, and it's weird to think that last year he was our second wide receiver and he was getting those reps. So
who is this De'Ami Brown?
Yeah. And so that's a little worrying, but yeah, I wouldn't put Sam Howell in at second string. I think this fan base we expect things a little too soon, and we're not as patient as we probably should be. Exhibit A, RG3, that it literally cost him his career, that we weren't patient enough and we should have just shut him down for the rest of the season. So I'm not going to be quick into trying to push him into that second role or that starting role.
I understand. I think now that's, again, first off, you're banking on the fact that if the only way they get playing time is if Carson Wentz gets injured. You obviously want Carson Wentz to be healthy the entire season and play to his potential.
I think he can because we have a good offensive line and they've been performing quite well in the preseason.
Going from there, the running back room is good, despite Brian Robinson getting shot.
Yeah, I think it's very good.
The only worry I have for the running backs for you guys is Antonio Gibson. He puts the ball on the carpet a ton.
Yeah, especially because we cannot afford to continually waste drives, and especially because in order for our defense to truly succeed, we need to have those very long, drawn-out drives, and that's how our offense is initially built. And it's going to be his 3rd year. We'd expect to see some progress in his ball carrying, which it hasn't, and he still doesn't look as comfortable in the running back position. It still seems like he's more of a wide receiver because he's good catching the ball. I think if Robinson was starting, he could be a very good gadget guy, kind of like a Deebo Samuel, or a Curtis Samuel. I still think we'll use him like that, hopefully when Brian Robinson returns. But I think McKissick is a better runner than him. So yeah, I'm still worried about
I think
Antonio Gibson.
I think come week 6, obviously it depends on Brian Robinson's how he heals and how he
Yeah.
comes back, how quick he comes back. But I say by week 6 or week 8, I say 2 weeks after he comes back, he'll be pushed into the starting position. I think with Antonio Gibson's struggles, especially last season, and now going into this season, they've seen that Brian Robinson can play well and he rushes well in the NFL. And Antonio Gibson was starting to struggle. I think that they'll then push Brian Robinson into the starting role, which I honestly think will then push JD McKissick back because obviously, you said Antonio Gibson has good hands. He used to be a wide receiver in Memphis, so he's got the hands. And so if you can then move him to that third down back who can catch balls out of the backfield and line out wide, that's far more valuable than JD McKissick, who is an actual running back and
He's an
runs
actual
those
running
running back
back, but
routes.
he's still more explosive than Antonio Gibson. Whenever he catches the ball, it seems like he makes a lot more it seems like he makes more plays than Gibson, but Gibson gets a lot more touches and carries. So I think I don't think it would exactly push McKissick like back. I
I'm
still
not.
think we'd
I
use
don't
both of
think.
them
Yeah, I still
like
think all three
equally.
of them will get used. I just
Yeah,
think JD McKissick will then receive. I think JD McKissick will be quote unquote punished more than
then
Antonio Gibson
Gibson.
by Brian Robinson being pushed into the starting role. Because I think Brian Robinson will then take the majority of the carries.
Yeah, which
Uh,
he should.
I think Antonio Gibson will then get pushed more into the receiving back, which I still think they'll use JD McKissick because, like you said, he's explosive. He's shown that he's a decent receiving back and a good third down back. But uh, maybe even they use Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson as a double-headed monster. The only issue there is you have to make sure that you actually run the ball with Antonio Gibson because if you only pass with Gibson in the backfield,
And people are going to notice
yeah,
that.
the defense is going to know what's happened. So it's definitely going to be interesting with Robinson back. What's going to happen to the running back room because Antonio Gibson, he has the hands and everything, and he's been the starter for the past 2 seasons. But Brian Robinson, I think, will take over by mid-season.
Yeah, and I think we can afford to run a lot more complicated offense than say the Eagles can because I don't know if Scott Turner will actually do this, but running 2 running back sets with McKissick and Gibson, and you could also have Curtis Samuel running fake end arounds or similar patterns to that. And Carson Wentz is a more experienced quarterback. I think we can put both of them on the field and have them not really get in the way of each other. And I just think that we can run like some more complicated plays in terms of that.
The only 2 things I would agree there that would give Washington an edge on a more complicated offense would be Curtis Samuel being a gadget receiver like Debo
Yeah.
Samuel
And I
or
think we have more gadget players than the Eagles do.
I but and Carson Wentz being more experienced. Those are
Yes.
the only 2 things I would give you. I don't think Washington could run a quote unquote more advanced offense. I just don't think the Eagles aren't. I think they're 2 different types of offenses. They're not one being more advanced. I think the the Eagles would value having more receivers on the field because they have that depth, whereas Washington has the better running back depth.
We did. I'd say
I
even
wouldn't
with
even say better depth because I mean
I'd say we have the bet. I think we have the better depth, but both of our offensive lines are very good,
once
but yours is ultimately better. I think it
once
can
once
make your
Brian
running back
Robinson
better.
comes back, once Brian Robinson comes back, Washington will have a better running back depth. But right now, the Eagles have 3 starting caliber backs in their backfield, and Miles Sanders, Kenny Gainwell, and Boston Scott. So I wouldn't say right now they have the better depth, but I will say this: your running backs are going to be more beneficial in a passing offense because they have better hands.
Yeah, all of them you can say are good pass catchers. Even Robinson, he was catching some great passes, and he's very physical. In terms of, I know us, he's the best at getting yards after contact. I don't know about the Eagles. I don't think you really have that much of a power
No, they don't.
back
That's
per
something that they
se.
needed to look for and they didn't get.
Yeah. So I don't know, but like the reason I said more complicated is because we saw this last year. I think the Eagles are trying to do too much, and I think it ultimately showed due to your lack of success. And once they simplified things, you had more success. That's why I said we can a little more complicated because the experienced quarterback, and we like the check down guys that we can ultimately give.
I think the Eagles are going more to an RPO offense come this season anyway, and they want to pass the ball more. Last year, they were pretty much, by the end of the season, they were pretty much 50-50 on rushing and passing. But, in the first half of the season, they were running the ball maybe 10 times a game at most. So they were definitely, and then they completely shifted the other way around. This season, they're definitely trying to run a pass-heavy offense. I'd say at least 75% passing. So, I just think it comes down to the personnel. I wouldn't say one is more, not experienced. What was the word you used? I wouldn't say one is, I wouldn't say one is a harder offense to learn. I just think that it's two different. Complicated, yes, thank you. I wouldn't say they're more complicated. I just think it's two different offenses. One in, Washington using their backs because they have better pass catching backs, and then the Eagles wanting more to run, 10, 11 personnel and try to get as many receivers on the field because they have the ability to do that with 4 NFL caliber wide receivers, people who have played in the league and have had success in the league. So I wouldn't say more complicated, but definitely two different types of offenses. But with that, going into your receivers, I think you guys have some potential there. Obviously, you're starting 3, barring they stay healthy. Curtis Samuel, barring they stay healthy, you guys have some pretty decent receivers. Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, who has great hands. Was his praise coming out of college. Curtis Samuel, a good gadget guy, which you've seen success in the NFL with Deebo Samuel. The wide receivers are good. You have a decent 3rd-round pick in Dyami Brown, and then Cam Sims has shown.
Cam Sims is pretty decent. Dyami Brown, it seems like he needs to address some things with his hands because one of the passes he dropped, it was like over the shoulder down the right sideline. For some reason, it was like just in front of his hands. He tried to do a one-hand pull-in when he could have easily done 2 hands and scored the touchdown. I just think he's trying to do too much sometimes, and it's like catching ability. For like last year, he was like, oh, he's a guy that Fitz can just throw up to on a 50-50 ball and he can jump up and get it because he has great hands. But it seems like that has suffered and he's possibly progressed backwards. I think he could get back to that point and improve, but from the preseason, it seems like something's there that is not as good.
Overall, I mean, you guys have your starting 3 and then your 4th that you can throw in if you need to. This is where I'm talking about in the difference in the 2 offenses. The Eagles are more comfortable throwing any of their receivers out. You guys want to use your running backs because you feel more comfortable. And that's also where Antonio Gibson could come in helpful when Brian Robinson gets healthy. He played slot in college. So, if you're not feeling confident that Cam Sims, Dyami Brown, or Dax Milne can be out there, then you just throw Antonio Gibson in the slot and make him run a route. So I think overall, your wide receiver depth might not be the greatest. You still have a couple question marks, but I think you can make up for it with running backs. I don't think that's that big of a deal. And then your tight ends, honestly, looking at them, they kind of scare me for you because aside from Logan Thomas, there's not really a name that really screams great.
I mean, Armani Rogers actually had a very good preseason, and I think he could have something there. But I think the reason why we have 5 is because we're unsure of him, kind of like what you said. And
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
John Bates is a rookie, right?
No,
or
he played. He was decent last season, filling in for Logan Thomas.
So it is his second year.
Yeah, but he's more of a blocker. He's like an extension of the offensive line, kind of like original tight ends were. But yeah, I think the reason why we did that is because we're still unsure of Logan Thomas and unsure of the young guys we have. So, but I would have preferred if we were to cut one and try and pick him up on our practice squad and maybe kept one of our cornerbacks. But we did sign 2 and waivers and bring back a lot of our players that we cut to our practice squad. So,
and I believe they're keeping the practice squad rules where you can raise a practice squad player on game day and stuff.
Yeah, that's good for somebody like Jarrett Patterson, who I really liked. Yeah, but our cornerbacks kind of scare me. I mean, the two guys we brought in are Tariq Castro-Fields and now my favorite Washington Commander name,
Rashad Wild Goose.
What a name. Exactly what a name. One of my favorite names since Bakari Rambo.
What was it?
One of my favorite names since Bakari Rambo. He played for the Redskins. He was a linebacker, I believe. That's a buttery name.
A buttery name. I've never heard a name be described like that.
Bakari Rambo.
Just finishing up on offense, you've already said, you're very confident in your offensive line. I think your offensive line is decent. How do you feel about the depth?
The depth I actually like because they gave Sam Howell a lot of time. So, and considering last year we had a lot of injuries, but yet they still performed. Like we were able to move guys to different positions. So I think there's a lot of versatility there. And considering Sam Cosmi back this year, we have Wes Schweitzer, Trey Turner. We have Chris Paul, not the basketball player, but
not the same Trey Turner either.
Yeah, no, it's so different. He's experienced. I actually like our offensive line. I'm not it's weird. I'm not as worried about the offense as I am the defense, which kind of sounds weird considering our defense is supposed to be our strong point.
Yeah. I mean, after you have on your defensive line, you have your three first-round picks in Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen, and Montez Sweat.
And it's
waiting for Chase Young to come back, who's missing at least 4 years.
On the edge, but the interior, but they haven't really been performing that great. Our linebackers, Jamin Davis, he's actually decent in coverage, but other than that, he hasn't really been playing like a first-round pick, that's not great for him. Our cornerbacks.
Your front seven looks a little in shambles.
Yeah, I mean, the linebackers we did, Bostic, he's a good run defense guy. Holcomb.
What kind of linebacker is Holcomb? Is he
He's a run defense guy. We have a great run defense. It was like that last year, and I think it's going to be like that this year. It's great because I think we obviously have the front seven. We have two great run stoppers in Payne and Allen, and obviously our edge guys. And our linebackers, Jamin Davis is more passing.
Yeah, he's not really. I mean, you need at least one of those anyway.
He's not really that great at roaming, kind of like a Ray Lewis. I know that's high end, but
that's not even. I wouldn't say. Oh, wait. You mean roaming like in general, just kind of
over the middle of the field, trying to read.
I thought when you said roaming, I thought you meant like someone who would drop back in coverage and just. I was Ray Lewis was not a coverage.
No. He's Davis he's actually decent at covering because he's pretty fast, but in terms of roaming over the middle of the field, I don't think he's
like a Bobby Wagner.
Yeah, he had a nice tackle, but other than that, not great. Our secondary is what really worries me. On paper, I think our safeties could be okay, but our secondary, I think part of it's down to coaching where it doesn't really, I don't think we know how to use our secondary because we have two man-to-man guys and one guy who's better in zone coverage. And I just think we've been using the same system and it hasn't really been working. We don't blitz that often. And I think we could afford to blitz a little bit more, take the pressure off of the front four, because if we don't, we're expecting them to give the quarterback 2 seconds pretty much every single play. And that's a lot to ask, even with 3 or 4 first-round picks. So yeah, if one of our secondary cornerbacks gets hurt, I think we'll be in trouble. But I hope Rivera and Del Rio come up with something to solve the issues because they haven't been playing well at all. Kendall Fuller has had some nice plays, but Jackson and Juice haven't really seemed to find their footing. And our safeties, Cam Crow had a great rookie season, but it seems like he's not been able to reach that point again. Yeah, I wish we would have brought back Collins or restructured his contract because I think he's a great box guy. We can put him at linebacker. But yeah, I'd say that's the thing I'm most worried about with this team is the pass coverage because like teams are going to figure this out. You don't run against us because we're going to stuff that pretty easily. You just pass against us and you drive the ball down the field, kind of like Mahomes was doing.
I would have to agree with you there with the offense being stronger than the defense. I mean, just like looking at it, it's meh. There's they don't. The defense has a couple big names like on the line, but
They're
like
not
the secondary just doesn't seem strong.
no,
The linebackers.
It's not like we have terrible names. Fuller's great. William Jackson, he's should be decent. Juice he showed some decent plays here and there, but they're just not performing. And whether that's down to themselves or whether that's down to the system that the coaching staff has them playing, because it seems like the offense is getting a little too much time to throw the ball, and that's not good because we don't really have the cornerbacks to lock him down for an extended period of time. I think Fuller can sometimes, but I just don't think that's the case with our secondary. It starts with the defensive line, and if we want to succeed, they're going to have to play a lot better than they have been.
All right, now I don't know if I asked you this previously, but just in case, you didn't think the Giants have the best 53, correct? In the NFC East?
The best 53?
Yeah.
No.
Cowboys?
Just
off the head, yes or no? Do you think they have the best 53?
No, they have the best high-end players, but if you're looking at the overall best 53, it has to be the Eagles. I mean,
my next question was, do you think Washington has the best 53?
I'd say even with our deficiencies, we're third. Because it's not like even looking at our 53, if you take away like how we've been playing and the deficiencies that seem to be obvious in terms of play, not in terms of looking at the depth chart, it looks like a good 53, but obviously the defense, it just doesn't perform. It seems to fall apart so much. There's so much time for the wide receivers. They get so much space. I still think that we can, like, if we solve some things, we can have a good defense because our 53 isn't bad, but it doesn't perform to that level. So I'd say top Eagles, because if you look at it, even the holes you still have decent players there, like your linebackers. You still like your wide receiver depth.
I would venture to say that the linebackers are on the Eagles are now better than the linebackers on the Commanders.
Well, yeah, they are.
Which the Eagles haven't had I don't think the Eagles have had a linebacker core better than anyone since they won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, so I'd say the linebackers are better than the Commanders now, but in terms of everything as a whole, I'd say you're number one. But in terms of top end, like guys like Micah Parsons, Dak Prescott, they have like more high top end players. But in terms of depth, it has to be the Eagles and overall.
I made a deal with one of my friends because he's a Cowboys fan, and I was talking to him about Dak Prescott, and we're in the same fantasy league, and he was talking about, I want to make sure that I get Dak Prescott. I need Dak Prescott. I'm like, dude,
you should have drafted him just so you can fleece him in the trade.
I was like, Dak Prescott's kind of he actually no, because he knows football. He wouldn't like
do that.
I kind of stole Debo on him though, so I feel kind of bad. But at the same time,
that's a no-brainer.
At the same time, I knew Debo wasn't going to fall to him, and I apologized to him afterwards and told him Debo's in good hands now. But I was talking to him. I was telling him how I think this is Dak Prescott's first year being tested, and I don't think he's going to do that great. So we made a deal, and in our deal, in order for him to win, I'm not going to say what it is, but in order for him to win, Dak Prescott has to have 30 plus passing touchdowns, 4,000 plus yards, and 12 or less interceptions. And that was my stat line for him on if I'll do my side of the bet or not. Because Michael Gallup, I didn't realize this when we were talking about it, but Michael Gallup is missing about the first half of the season because he tore his ACL in the playoffs against the 49ers. So he's going to be out for a while. So the wide receiver depth is actually way worse than we thought. And it goes CeeDee Lamb and then Noah Brown and Jalen Tolbert. So
and one thing, like, it's not like they're gonna be able to fall back on the running because their offensive line it's taken a big hit this year, and Ezekiel Elliott's kind of fallen off, and it seems like Tony Pollard, there's a good chance he could get the majority of the carries this year. So, I mean, I don't think that's too much of a stretch to say that this is one of the first year that Dak's going to be truly tested. I think last year he was coming off the injury, but not as much as this year, considering how much the offensive line has suffered.
Which I also noticed that the last season when I would say he was tested because last season after he came off of his injury from that point, which was like about week 9, I think, when he came back to the week that they were talking about, which I believe was week 15 or 16. It was about a 6-week span. He had the 27th worst QBR in the NFL. So yeah, he came off the injury and that totally killed his play. So I think this year he's really getting tested because he's healthy, but he doesn't have that stacked offense around him. So that's going to be interesting to see what happens there. But with that, is that anything else for the NFL?
Washington, since it's their 90 year, they just announced the next 10 players for their 90 greatest. I'm gonna pull it up. They added, I know one of them is London Fletcher.
Good name. Ryan Kerrigan.
Yeah, Kerrigan's in there. And London Fletcher, he should be in the Hall of Fame. You can quote me on that. Well, because
strongly about that, huh?
Well, and same with Brian Mitchell. He should be in the Hall of Fame as well. Same with Devin Hester, even though he wasn't Washington. But the next 10 are Champ Bailey, D'Angelo Hall, Chris Cooley, Ryan Kerrigan, Santana Moss, Stephen Davis, who I don't recognize
Stephen Davis.
Look up his stats. Great running back, let him go for no reason. London Fletcher, Larry Peccatello, Daryl Grant, who played for us in the 80s, and Trent Williams. And I actually met 2 of the players on that list. I met D'Angelo Hall.
I was going to say D'Angelo Hall came to our school one time, didn't he?
Yeah, it was.
Son was wrestling.
Yeah, it was a wrestling meet, and we saw him in the stands. His son was wrestling. And I also met Chris Cooley when I was younger in a Target up in Leesburg. Actually, he was injured, and we went over and say hi. My dad introduced me.
That's a pretty decent list there. I think I recognized 5 of those players, 5 or 6.
Yeah, Ryan, I recognize it.
London Fletcher, Santana Moss, Chris Cooley,
Champ Bailey, Trent Williams.
Yeah. So I think that's 6. But with that, let's move over to the NHL now. NHL, there isn't much happening. So I'm just going to kind of ask a broad question here, just try to get a little bit of traction going. And that's what's your pre-camp look on the team? Your coach, your team as a whole.
I think we've gotten better this year. I think hopefully Peter Laviolette will address our defensive issues, because I think that was a problem last season. Obviously, with Darcy Kemper, our goaltending has gotten better. So I think we're an overall better, more experienced team. I think the big thing we're missing last year is just decent to good goaltending and just somewhat consistent. And I've said this in the past, we don't need Vezina numbers from Darcy Kemper. We don't even need really good numbers, just good to decent 9-15 save percentage around there. And I think we could be a pretty decent team. I'm going to make a prediction. I think we're going to finish 2nd in the division.
2nd? Wow. Who's
considering
finishing 1st? I think we'll have the same team.
I have the Hurricanes.
Oh, never mind. We do not have the same team.
You have the Rangers?
Yeah, I really
I
like the
think they're going to take a step, a little.
like.
I
I
think
don't
it'll be
like the Rangers.
close. I ultimately think the top 3 or 4 will be close because I think all teams are good.
Yeah,
But I have the Hurricanes finishing one.
I obviously, I like the Rangers like roster. They showed out really well last season. Played a tough series against the Lightning, who went on. They didn't win the cup, but they were pretty dang close. And they were the 2-time defending cup champs. So, they showed that they can play pretty well this season. And I think the Rangers, adding in a playoff experience, that's just going to make them that much better. I think the Caps, like you said, I think they have a pretty decent goaltender. And if you look at Darcy Kemper's stats, I mean, Darcy Kemper still had decent seasons in Arizona. Had he had a
He,
decent defense in front of him, I think he would have been that much better. But
yeah, he
Arizona
was
was
getting
just
like Vesna votes.
Arizona has just been a poverty franchise and
Great
didn't
jerseys
put
though.
anything in front of him, and he still put numbers up. So I think you have a decent goalie there. Now, are you going to get the crap end of the deal with like the same Braden Holtby situation where they win a cup and then they come and just forget how to play hockey like Braden Holtby did with Vancouver? So I think that's
Braden Holt, he's been actually playing like a little better. I think that could also
in
be
Dallas
down.
now though. Actually, I think he's a free agent right
He's
now.
a free agent, but he was in the Canucks, and they weren't really playing that well, even though if they have a decent roster. Understand that it's like, and I think Grubauer, that's a different situation as well. I understand same team and signing a relatively big deal, but Grubauer was on the Kraken, who aren't a good team whatsoever. So like I understand that, but we're an experienced enough team. We're a team that plays like 5 men back, and we have once we get Wilson back, especially with guys like Strome, Ovi, we have forwards who aren't afraid to play defense, and especially with our young guys, they seem like they're end-to-end players. I think our defense can be decent enough to fill in any possible like um, shortcomings that could possibly go towards Darcy Kemper's way. He just needs to be a lot more consistent than Samsonov and Vanacek were, which I don't think is going to be that hard for an experienced goaltender like him.
Uh, I would say the Caps. I'd say they're a wild card team. I don't think I'm going to put them second in the division. I'd put them at a wild card team right now, pre-camp, guess. But I I think, like you said, like they have a good. A lot of their forwards are now two-way forwards. You can thank
Mm-hmm.
uh Barry Trotz for that, and I think I'm just interested. The biggest headline that I'm interested to see is just Darcy Kemper and how he does in Washington. He
I'm
doesn't have.
interested to see Strome because we're going to be putting him on an experienced team and he's going to be playing second line minutes. And so, like, and one thing I'm glad about bringing him in is it's a lot more youth. We're going to give time to Wilson, so he give time to Wilson to recover. We're not going to rush him back. Same thing with Mantha. I'm more I'm more interested to see how he plays versus Kemper because I'm not as like I think I know what to expect from Kemper, and I think that's what we signed him for is more consistency.
uh, Going over to the Flyers. That's honestly, the Flyers are this is a broad spectrum to try to look at for the
It's
Flyers.
it it's hard to analyze.
It's just so many question marks right now, like pre-camp. Uh, the one thing that I do like, okay, so this year I'd say it's a out of out of the park. I don't even know how to word it. It's an unlikely chance that they make the playoffs. If they do, it is by a wild card. But with that being said, I don't think that they are going to be one of the worst teams in the league either. I think they're going to kind of be middle. And really, the only thing that I'm looking for this season is just progression. I don't care. Like, obviously, I want them to make the playoffs. Obviously, I want them to win the cup. Being realistic, though, I just see like you're taking a lot of young guys and moving them into the NHL. one of the big lines that I'm really excited to see is Owen Tippett, Morgan Frost, and Joel Farabee. That was their young guy line last season. They played really well together. And Morgan Frost and Owen Tippett have previous history. So I'm really excited to see that. But they're really making a youth movement, which I'm really interested to see. So I'm not so much worried about this season in making the playoffs and everything, as I'm just kind of worried about progression. The and then at goalie, they're set with Carter Hart. I don't really know where they're going with their second goalie right now, but Carter Hart, I think, with a good defensive structure in front of him, which they should have because they just traded for Tony DeAngelo. They signed Justin Braun back. They have Cam York, Ivan Provorov, Ristolainen, Travis Sanheim, who make a really good second line. They have the potential to have a good back end. So as long as they play pretty good defense in front of Carter Hart, he's going to play well. I'd give him a solid 915, 920 save percentage. I'd like to see him drop down below 3 goals against again, maybe like a 2.5 at most. So honestly, just this year, I'm looking for a lot of progression going into the season. I think they'll kind of finish middle of the pack. I don't think they'll make the playoffs.
I don't either.
I'd give them a solid in 82 games. I say somewhere between I'll say 86 points in 82 games, which that's not going to be a playoff team.
No, especially in our division.
The cutoff, not even the division, the conference. The cutoff last season was 100 points. Caps were the 8th seed with 100 points. So in order to make the playoffs, I'd say they'd need at least 95 points in the Eastern Conference. So I'd say a solid 86 points, and I'd be happy. Around 80 points is where I want to be.
I would just be hoping for like visible progress in your young guys, and
that's what I'm looking for. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the best thing you can hope for, especially with a new coach, a very tough coach. I just think that's what you should be looking for, and you shouldn't really be setting very
goals. Torts is another guy that I'm really excited to see. I think he's going to make he's going to be that type of coach to get everything out of the type of player that they are. He was part of Zach Werenski's development and Seth Jones, and I want to say Vinny LeCavalier back when he was with the Lightning. So he's helped with young players. So I'm just overall, it isn't kind of a new team altogether. You got a bunch of young guys coming in and a new coach. It's going to be interesting to see. And that's really, like you said, I'm just focused on visible progression and seeing a good momentum going into the next season. This season is just kind of a retool year, if you will, to kind of make progress. But
before we move on to baseball, I'm gonna share my screen. We've been talking about reverse retro jerseys recently. We're talking about the leaks, and one team just announced that they're bringing back a fan favorite logo, and this is actually one of my favorite jerseys of all time. But it's the Buffalo Sabres. It's their black and red goat head jersey, which I think is
oh yes, I know
that's exactly one of my favorite in history, and I'm genuinely considering getting one because I love that jersey.
The Sabres have some pretty nice jerseys.
Yeah, the one that even their most recent reverse retro where it had the 2 swords logo. I think the Sabres, a lot of the times they have better jerseys than they do teams.
Yeah, a lot. Yeah, the good old the Buffalo logo that Dominic Hasek wore.
Yeah, who should have led them to a Stanley Cup, but Brett Hull's stupid foot.
Yeah, but that one I'll be interested to see. And they need to bring the Fisherman back for the Islanders.
I'm pretty sure that's pretty much confirmed at this point. There's been a lot of leaks showing the Fisherman logo, so that's cool as well. And there's leaks that Capitals it's the same Screaming Eagle logo, but it's original colors. So I'm excited to see that. And hopefully they deck out the stadium for when they have those nights where they change everything to those colors.
Yeah. Real quick, before we go into baseball, I am going to tell you guys about our friends at Baumburger, food truck that is based out of Lovettsville, run by 2 college-age kids, people that we went to high school, know them really well, good people.
We went to all the way back to elementary school with
Yeah.
him.
And they just opened up this business a couple months ago, really starting to gain some traction recently, and I'm really excited for them going into the month of September now. Lots of catering and locations that they're going to, which you guys can look up on their socials at Bomb Burger Food Truck on Instagram and Facebook. They post all their stuff. They have really good burgers. I went there. My favorite is the Bomb Burger. Really good fries too. And they bring out specials a lot. So you guys should check them out. They go to Brossman's Farm Stand in Luckett's every weekend on Saturday and Sunday. And like I said, starting to expand out more, going to different locations. So to check them out, again, just go look on their socials at Bomb Burger Food Truck on Instagram and Facebook. Now going over to the MLB. Last time we talked was, the Phillies were going into a winning streak. They won 6 straight against the Reds and the Pirates, but recently they have been dropping some games.
But yesterday,
rough ones too.
Like, this Diamondback series has been weird. You guys got smashed the first 2 games. The first game was 13-7, then 12-3.
Hold on,
then you
real
beat
quick
them
before you continue.
18-2.
Real quick before you continue, that 13-7 game, the Phillies were up 7-0.
Yeah, that's bad.
Yeah,
that's bad.
I don't know what happened. And the Pirates, like the first 2 nights against the Pirates, they were killing them. There was nothing the Pirates could do.
Then you guys lost 5-0.
Yeah, the third game, the offense just totally lost it.
Those are the games you cannot afford to drop.
Yeah, exactly. The Diamondback series, like you said, really weird, really high scoring. First off,
yeah, you lost 12-3. Then the next day you won 18-2.
The Diamondbacks, though, I didn't realize this. I just noticed this today. They have the same record as the Giants. They're 61-68, just under 500.
I know the Giants were. Yeah, I know the Giants weren't having that great of a season. I think their run a year or 2 ago, if it was last year, the year before that, I think that was a little bit of a Cinderella run. But I don't realize the Diamondbacks were actually near mediocre, just under 500.
Well, I know Ketel Marte and
that's all I know.
Carson Kelly, something Rojas.
Josh Rojas is even on. I thought he was on the Orioles.
No,
I could be wrong.
I think Joshua Rojas is right. Those are both really good players, and then they've started bringing up some guys from their farm system, and obviously it's been working out well for them. Being that they're 61-68 on the season now. They're not going to make a wild card unless barring something insane, because you really have 5 teams in the mix for the wild. Not even 5, 4. You got the Braves, who basically locked it up already.
That's locked.
They just absolutely fall apart. You have the Phillies, who, like I said, were struggling against the Diamondbacks, which actually brought the Padres back into the mix and made my situation that I said last week, where I want the Phillies to drop below the Padres, more realistic. Phillies are only a half game ahead of the Padres now in the standings for the wild card. And then Milwaukee is 2.5 games behind the Padres, 3 games behind the Phillies for a wild card. But the other thing I wanted to look at was Bryce Harper, since he's come back. Something that was really, really helpful was as he got a hit in his first game back.
RBI,
so he got that out of the way immediately. He not only did he have a hit, I believe he actually had 2 RBIs with it.
Yeah, it was that's the best you can ask for.
He had 2 RBIs in his first game back. And you know what made it even I was watching the game, and it was the first inning. The bases were loaded because Alec Boehm reached on an error, I believe. But the bases were loaded, and Bryce Harper came up to the plate. He was 4th at bat. He came up to the plate with bases loaded, no one on. Perfect situation to try to get a grand slam in his first game back. Unfortunately, it didn't didn't turn out that way, but he did deliver and put 2 people in. In the next game, he went 1 for 2 with a couple of walks. Still batting. He was up at 319. That moved his batting average up to 319. Since he's come back, he's just been playing decently, which is all you can really ask for. It doesn't look like he's too uncomfortable playing with that thumb, which was obviously the reason he was out, and the biggest thing that they were worried about. But I really just want to see him come back and play defensively. I don't know how quickly that'll happen or if it'll happen this season.
But I would wait for that because it's more likely you're going to get hurt in the field. There's a lot more chances than batting. So I would just wait a little bit on that to make sure that he's 100% comfortable with that.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not rushing it back, but like now their defense is even a little bit more strapped with
Marsh.
Nick Castellanos just went down with an injury. It's just turf toe, so he shouldn't be out too long. But
that can linger, but it should be fine.
But yeah, I mean, Bryce Harper has had about 5 hits since he's come back on Friday. So he's averaging about a hit a game, which
all you can really ask for.
Yeah, 3 hits. His batting average is up to 323. So I mean, yeah, like you said, that's all you can really ask for. He doesn't look like he's having any issues, and he helps the team produce more offense. I don't know if that makes sense, but when he's in the lineup, it just kind of gives the rest of the team a boost and makes the rest of the team play better. So hopefully, I mean, that Diamondbacks series was rough, but they have a month left of baseball to make sure that they lock in that wild card series. A couple big teams. Obviously, the Giants aren't as great as we thought they were, but the Giants, the Braves, 2 series against the Braves and the Blue Jays are all I'm really worried about left in this season. So you have 4 series for a total of 12 games out of the month that you really have to worry about. You got 2 homestands left, 3 road trips. This is what it comes down to. I mean, they're looking to end a 10-year playoff drought. They haven't gone since 2009. They went in 2012, I believe.
Yeah, you've been there a few times after 2009.
Yeah, I believe they went in 2012, and that was the last time they went.
Yeah, but the 2 things I'm watching out for is Manassas, who actually made history. He had a game where he had 3 doubles. It was either like a few days ago or yesterday, where I'm pretty sure he's the only Nats rookie to do that. And the other thing I'm watching for is Aaron Judge. For one, he's unanimous MVP. It's
Did you see him call his shot
at this point, but he has a month of baseball.
Did you see him call his shot in the offseason? There's a video of him in batting practice. It's not batting practice. He's just hitting it off the tee. But there's this video of him, and he just goes, "I'm gonna hit 50 again this year," and hits the ball off the tee, and he just hit 50 again. Man called it.
He's actually at 50. With a month of baseball left, he's at 51 homers, and last month wasn't the best of months for him, but it was still pretty good. So it's very realistic that he could reach 60.
Does he know that he doesn't have to homer every single night?
You'd obviously like to, considering that every other Yankees bat is pretty much struggling.
Oh yeah, because they're basically a farm system team, aren't they?
Well, it's not exactly their farm system team. They're calling up their farm to actually try and get their lineup better. It's just that they have a lot of bats that aren't performing, like Donaldson. Anthony Rizzo's hurt. DJ LeMahieu's hurt, which are the guys who are producing. But Gleyber Torres has been batting like crap. Same with Donaldson, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, and Aaron Hicks. So they have some problems, but he's been the bright spot the entire year, and I'm a Yankees fan, so I think it'd be cool to see him reach 60. And obviously, another thing I'm watching out for is Albert Pujols, who had a great month, is getting closer to A-Rod's 696.
The Goldschmidt also, he's tied with Alonso for the RBI lead in the NL. And
it's within the realm of possibility for him to get a triple crown.
He's 3 behind Schwarber, and Schwarber's kind of hit a cold spot recently. So it is in the realm of possibilities that Paul Goldschmidt takes the triple crown, which I think if he gets the triple crown, he unanimously wins MVP.
I think he's going to win MVP regardless because he's having a ridiculous season. But like the last person to win the triple crown was Miggy, and like that's an automatic.
Didn't Vladdy win last year?
He didn't win the MVP, nor did he win the triple crown. He was top 3 in all 3 categories, but he didn't win the triple crown.
I know for a while last season he
was in the running,
but I remember Shohei Ohtani won MVP.
Yeah, nearly unanimously. But the last person to do it was Miguel Cabrera in 2012, I believe.
Oh, okay. I thought for sure Vladdy did the triple crown last season. Other than that, I think that's really all there is for this week's episode. Anything else from you?
That's all I got.
Next week, look out for a new episode, and this is gonna be a YouTube only thing. We're gonna do a tier list, which is basically, we're gonna be talking about which teams fall where in the NFL. We're gonna be doing that. That's gonna be a YouTube only video, and we'll talk about where we think each team will fall there. And in there, we'll do our Super Bowl prediction and talk about, an too early Super Bowl prediction, who we think is going to end up where, our division, all the good stuff like that. So check those out. Go to our YouTube at BL in the DC, Brotherly Love in the District, where we also post the video versions of these pods. You can follow us on Instagram and TikTok at BL in the DC. And on those, you can DM us questions, comments, anything you want on here. You can email us questions at blinthedc@gmail.com, and you can rate us on Apple and Spotify. And with that, I think we're going to end it off there, and we will see you guys next week.
See you later.